My name is Amanda Hoyt, and I am the Director of Faith and Public Life. I just want to take a moment and recognize my dear friend and many of our friends, Reverend Tim Ahrens, who was supposed to join us today, and found out at about 3 o'clock this morning that his father had a brain aneurysm and isn't going to make it through the night. So I just ask that you keep him in your thoughts and your prayers. He's very important to us, and he's actually the first pastor that came to me with this issue of pregnancy discrimination in the workplace. So I want to thank Senator Jones and Senator Cafaro, as well as Reverend Josh Stoxen, who you'll hear from, and Dr. Wayne Trout. Our small business owner is running just a tiny bit late, so if he comes in, I'll just recognize him and bring him right up here. We're going to be speaking today about the importance of protecting Ohio women from pregnancy discrimination in the workplace. Those of us here from many different backgrounds, different areas, but we are joining forces today to protect pregnant workers. At Faith and Public Life, we are trying very deeply to bring faith leaders back into the Statehouse on issues that unify our communities and unify our families. We brought faith leaders Columbus last July, calling on the Ohio legislature to introduce and enact a law to protect pregnant workers. Reasonable temporary accommodations for pregnant women at work is important for women, families, and businesses across our state. And this is a family values issue. And I am pleased to stand with these legislators and proponents today as they announce this bipartisan effort that guarantees all pregnant women in Ohio workplaces receive the reasonable temporary accommodations they need to stay on the job without jeopardizing their child's health. Speaking to pastors, rabbis, nuns, lay leaders, I know that the faith community strongly believes that no woman should ever have to choose between her job and her pregnancy. As a mom and as an evangelical Christian, fighting pregnancy discrimination is a personal issue to me, and values is a deep values issue for me as well. And I know that it makes good political sense too to protect pregnant workers. This legislation will make pregnancy discrimination at work a thing of the past. So now I'd like to introduce to you my friend, Senator Shannon Jones from the 7th District, and then everyone will just follow her, okay?
Thank you so much, Amanda, and thank you all for being here today. This is a really important issue, and one that I'm really pleased to be joined by my friend and colleague from the other side of the aisle, Senator Cafaro. What we know in the Ohio Senate is that it's when it comes to issues of family and women, we find a lot of common ground with our Democrat colleagues, and so it's a real honor to be here representing all of the women, both Republican and Democrat, in the Ohio Senate who are joined to support this legislation. Reasonable accommodation, it should go without saying how workplaces make reasonable accommodations a lot for employees. In fact, we know of employees who have reasonable accommodations when they had a DUI and part of their job was driving, that they would be moved to another job that didn't require driving because keeping people employed was tantamount to keeping families and communities healthy. It stands to reason then that women who are pregnant would also be given those reasonable accommodations. And we know that too often, though, that's not the case. In the state of Ohio, nearly 1,600 cases exist of alleged pregnancy discrimination. And so what we're looking for are those temporary accommodations that maybe it's a short break that companies afford their employees who have diabetes to take their medication, the same type of short break that they might need if they are pregnant. Certainly if their job requires lifting, some temporary reprieve from those lifting in order to be able to protect baby and protect mom, and most importantly, keep those families healthy during the pregnancy, but beyond the pregnancy, because keeping moms employed, many of whom are the sole breadwinners in their family, is vital for the long-term health of those families. So we think that this is an important and reasonable issue. A final point that I would make before I send it over to Senator Cafaro for her remarks would be, many of you know I've been very involved, along with another colleague of mine, Senator Charlita Tavares, on the issue of infant mortality reduction. And through the course of infant mortality work, we know that much like all of our healthcare metrics, that the clinical care is only 20% of what's will dictate the outcome, whether it's for mom or for baby. The other 80% are things that we call the social determinants of health, economic status, for example. And so this sort of reasonable accommodation, keeping moms employed, perhaps maintaining their own insurance so that they can get their prenatal and postnatal care, we know is vital to reducing infant mortality. And so it is true in infant mortality reduction, there is no silver bullet, but we view this as one more small piece to a very large pie that addresses the social determinants of health that are so critical, foundational, and in fact, way more important in many cases than the clinical care that women are receiving from their providers. So we thank everyone for being here today to show their support. And with that, it's really my pleasure to introduce Senator Cafaro.